appropriately, then we are using them for the purpose they have been given to us. But if they become our masters, that is where the problem comes, because as soon as they become our masters, we have given them the power to delude ourselves, right?
I have a question, like how do you kind of make sure that you are following your intellect rather than listening to your mind at any point in time? Because as you mentioned as well that it's the mind is much more like it's like more powerful in terms of convincing you to do follow your senses than the intellect. So is there any I mean kind of formula where you
So the cheat sheet is really simple here.
Hmm,
Ask the purpose of what you're doing something. And is that purpose in the form of a seva for others? Or is it a selfish purpose of acquiring something for this body and for this from a body consciousness perspective? If your purpose is at a higher level, then you know you're listening to your intellect, you're listening to your capital S self.
well, like the simple thing you mentioned, like, going for exercise, right? That would have the only purpose that you stay healthy. Like, it's more personal than giving to anyone else. So, but still,
That's okay.
No, no,
if you
no.
are healthy, you can serve other people.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
but
So
that is, uh-huh.
so it doesn't mean that you will not have any that you will not listen to or given for like things that are related, seemingly related to body consciousness, right? So you will obviously do things for your body, for whatever you may sound, which may seem selfish or something, right? End of the day, it is about purpose in your mind that is important. So, for example, exercise, right? Now, the action will look the same for two people. One person may want to do it specifically because, I want to be ripped so that I can, walk topless on a beach, versus somebody else whose purpose is to maintain a healthy body, because body is the temple of Lord. And if you don't maintain it, then you will not be able to do your seva and your duty effectively in this world. The action, at the action level, it's exactly the same, but the bhav is different. And the only person who knows the bhav is ourselves, right? So it is for ourselves to judge whether what we are doing, it comes from body consciousness or whether it comes from duty, whether it comes from likes or dislikes or from duty. Another small cheat sheet that I typically use for myself is, if you have, this is something that when you have to get closer to yourself to understand how you're feeling. Okay, the moment there is any kind of negative feeling of stress, anxiety, fear, anger, or any
Mhm.
such negative feeling, okay, then that means the satogun is not of higher order. Okay, then that means you're being driven somewhere. There is a driving factor of expectation, and that expectation is driving your action. That's a point for you to take a stop and ask yourself, what am I chasing? What am I expecting? And remove that expectation. The moment you remove that expectation of some kind of result, or something that you fear, immediately you start to ask yourself, okay, so if I take this out, why am I doing this action? And you will find either that you don't want to do that action any longer, or you will find a higher purpose towards doing the same action, which then will impel you in a much stronger and in a better manner to do the same action that you were doing before. So, negative feeling, the moment a negative feeling of any kind comes in, take stop. That's a very big sign.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But that's a good one. Thank you.
Welcome.
Continue reading, Ashwin.
When the senses are shown of their deluding power, the intellect involves them in their objects only to the necessary extent. And this is what is meant by disciplining the senses.
I think this point Tuna just made, right? The purpose, your intellect will define the purpose of how you use these senses, um, to the right extent, to whatever duty you have and to whatever pleasure. Because this is, like you mentioned, we're on a scenic journey towards salvation. We're not doing the hard route. The scenic journey involves that we take a break, we relax, we enjoy, we feel replenished, we sleep, we feel energized to come back to the scriptures, all of that.
Actually, this is a very important piece, right? That we enjoy ourselves. That the goal, as we always said, right? The goal is happiness, because our source is happiness. Our source is Sat Chit Anand, an eternal bliss, an eternal happiness. And we all want to go back to that source, and that's why we chase happiness. And we just have to understand that chasing happiness outside of us will never get us there. Chasing happiness inside of us will eventually get us to our source. So we have to remain happy. And if we are happy, then Satogun is in the driver's seat. Very, very important.
Yeah.
So I,
Hema, you can read. Yeah.
sorry, one more thing. Like Abhinav just mentioned, when when your mind overtakes, there can be different excuses, like you are tired, your body is paining, and you have not slept well, or something like that. What is the connection in terms of these excuses? Can these excuses be genuine as well, and you listen to those excuses that you didn't sleep well, so you should skip today what you have to do?
So this is where I think your personal judgment and experience comes in, right? Like
Your
I know,
intellect, actually, the
and that's
intellect
your
comes in.
intellect, the discerning faculty. So like I know if I have even the slightest cold or sore throat, I go for a run. By next day, it will get full blown flu. Tuhina, if she has the slightest flu, if she goes for a run, it energizes her body and she actually feels stronger, right? Me, lack of sleep, I can still go for a run. So it's each person is slightly different, and this is what you need to understand. Where are you being most productive, in what circumstance? Because only you can take care of your own safety.
Yeah. And another thing is, right, end of the day, like we said, there is no one answer, right? The answer of what is your duty is driven by Desh, Kal, Paristhiti, and your ashram. Every moment it changes, correct? So, for example, and when there are when there is a wrong and a right, we all know the answer. We'll always choose the right over wrong. The problem comes when there are two apparent rights. Which one is better? I have a little bit of time, I wake up. Do I spend that time with my child? Do I go for a run? Or do I get ready for my office because there's so much work to do? All three of them seem to be the right things for me to do, and I'm not able to prioritize in a moment, right? Those are the kind of questions that Gita will help us answer. Like right and wrong is very easy, right? Everyone knows the difference. So what particular thing requires your attention in that moment? Should I be spending this 1 hour with my child versus exercise versus my work? Will always be dependent on that moment of what has led you to be in this moment. What is your past? What is the next thing that is expected of you? Sometimes you will prioritize one over the other. Okay, and none of this is right or wrong. Like no one can judge from outside, oh, why did Anupama do this or that, right? So
Yeah.
the only way for you to get that discernment more clearly is through what we say the four tenets of the class, which
Mhm.
will help you cleanse your antakaran. And what are the four tenets? Attending the class regularly. If you're not attending it, listen to the recordings, but basically attend the class. That's very important, so that it acts as a reminder every week. Swadhyay, right? So what is happening in the class? Shravan. We are listening. Then we have to do our swadhyay. There is no replacement for swadhyay because we are not coming in for a concert here, right? We are
Yeah.
doing this as a learning. We have to go back and practice every day. 2 shlokas a day, swadhyay. This is where we do after Shravan. This helps us to do manan. We read 2 shlokas in the morning and spend the entire day thinking about how they apply to our life as of today. That's your manan. And then nidhi dhyasan will happen, where we start to practice it. I have learned it. Now I'm beginning to become aware, and at some stage, that awareness will start to change our actions, our purusharth, our willpower will rise above the VVGP and our prarabdha, right? And our sanskars. So nidhi dhyasan will happen. And from Nidhi Dhyasan, slowly we will move to a stage of Kirtan. So Swadhyay, very important. The third tenet is Namjap. We always have to do some or the other Namjap, right? Right now we are doing the Namjap Anushtan for a specific Namjap. But even after that, when it is, when it is, the Purti will happen on 27th April. After that also there is encouragement to continue to do some or the other Namjap because it acts as a reminder for what we should be doing or what we should not be doing. And plus it keeps our mind focused and away from and the other stuff that is not necessarily that will take us away from our spirituality. And the fourth important thing is, what is the fourth important thing? I have also forgotten. Oh, shlok. That's something we've not introduced in our class yet. Memorization of shlokas. It will start from chapter 3. There are some shlokas that are absolutely essential to be memorized. We'll talk about it when we start chapter 3. Okay, so these are the four important tenets. When we do this regularly, it will help us do the antahkaran ki shuddhi, cleanliness of ourselves, so that our intellect becomes sharpened. The sharper it is, the clearer our uh, bigger self will speak in every situation and tell us what is the right thing to do in any situation. That is why we read, and that is why all these four things are important.
Rame, can you read the connection, please?
Yeah. Connections. The Lord has described year 2:4 the characteristics and conduct of a person established in firm perception. Now he tells how such a person is different from one totally engrossed in the pleasures of sense objects, as day is from night.
Ya nisha sarvabhutanam
Ya nisha sarvabhutanam
tasyam ja tasyam jagarti sanyami
tasyam jagrati samyami
sanyami
sayami
yasyam jagrati bhutani
yasyam jagrati bhutani
sa nisha pashyato munehe.
सा निशाः पश्यतो मुनः.
Tiji?
The self-disciplined person keeps awake in the realization of the blissful self, what is like the darkness of night to other beings, and when the worldly beings keep awake in the enjoyments of transient and momentary worldly pleasures, it is like night to the sage. The difference between a sage and a worldly person. An ordinary person is so much engrossed in the pleasure of worldly enjoyments that no other matter evokes any interest in the person's mind. Everyone knows that real happiness cannot be obtained from worldly enjoyments, but they hold a great temptation. Ruminating continuously on them, the mind is so engrossed in them that any mention about them appears to be dazzling like bright sunshine. But to a person of steady, firm perception, whose senses have been disciplined and intellect illumined by the meditation on the divine bliss, it is as dark as night. To
So,
such a
so here it's you. Bhagwanji is using the analogy of day and night to make a point, but for a lot of people it becomes a little confusing, right? But out here, essentially, what he's trying to highlight is most of us, as we engage in this world, we tend to believe that everything in the sansar, in this world, is real. And that's what we start chasing, right? We start chasing material happiness, success. We try and control everything in our environment as much as we can because we feel that's what is real, right? That is my real contribution to this world. That's going to be my real legacy, right? So we are so outwardly focused because that's all that we can see and perceive from our five senses. We consider that world to be real. What Bhagwanji is saying is for the ignorant, this is true. But for the people who are enlightened, they understand this is all Maya. This is all unreal because anything temporary cannot be real. So the whole world in sansar is temporary. We have a start date, we have an end date. Anything that is born out of creation will have an end date. So he's saying the wise will know this is not real. They will know the real is one that is unchangeable, that is never born, never dies, and
Immutable.
immutable. Right? So we know, so they all feel that sense within themselves. Right?
And I think another very important thing here to take away is that a person, what makes a person tick, right? What makes a person go? They are very different for people who are established in firm perception versus people who are seeped in worldliness. Again, right? There's nothing wrong with sansar. What is wrong is sansarikta, and that is what we are trying to control. Not sansar. Sansar is divine. It is his maya end of the day. But we have to be very, very careful about being engrossed in sansarikta. And that is the difference between a person who is engrossed in sansarikta versus a person who is steeped in firm perception. One avails of this maya, use the maya, avail of the senses of, in a provided in the body, and use them as a yog maya, use the world also as a medium of connection to him, versus a person who is steeped in the sansarikta, who is deluded by this maya, becomes he interacts with this world as maya jal. Okay, so the same maya can become maya jal versus becoming yog maya. Okay, and so what will interest a person who is in firm perception will be very different from things that interest a person who is steeped in worldliness. So, as we move along in this journey, you may find yourself that your interests are changing. How you spend your time changes. The type of conversations you will do with people will change, they will evolve. And how you want to spend your free time will change drastically. And these are all parts of our own evolution. Okay, and you will start to see that the people that you hang out with will also may change, or even better, that the people that you hang out will get into the sport, right? So which will then, as a whole, change your perception, your conversations, etc. So it's very natural for it to happen. You will find that some people get left out from your life. Eventually new people get added, new conversations get added, and it's all right.
I have another question. Generally, I was having this conversation with Kavita as well that, generally we do feel those moments where we kind of differentiate between what is permanent and what is temporary. And you kind of decide that, okay, this should not affect you and you should be happy and take it as, the prasad buddhi attitude that whatever happens and comes, it's for good. And I do experience those moments, but then there would be other moments where things, I have expectation and it kind of if it doesn't happen as per my expectation, I get affected. Like I can feel the anger, I can feel the sadness. So isn't this not like when you change and when you go there, it's a thing which becomes part of your personality, or it's that you have to keep on reminding yourself that this is the right thing and you have to get out of it, or it becomes a natural part of you? Like how does it happen with enlightened people?
So the goal, of course, is that it becomes a natural part of you.
Yeah.
But to reach that goal, there is a constant amount of practice and work and reminding that goes along the way. Because we are so entrenched in the world and sansar and body consciousness that even the smallest thing can move us completely from our journey, right? um,
I asked Abhinav to do some shopping and he forgot and he came home said I did not buy all the ingredients that you asked me to, even when I gave him the entire list. Expectation which does not get fulfilled. So then my reaction to that, do I get angry, do I feel upset, versus how I control that if it happens, and do I shout at him, which I've done very often, versus going now, okay, now that you've forgotten, what is the next thing to do? Are you going to go and buy it again? Will you step out, or am I going to change the menu? Right. So
Yeah,
to
that is
answer,
the thing. I mean, we all face that, especially you are in a family life and you have expectation and all. So I totally agree that we have that confusion. So sometimes you behave in a responsible manner and understand and accept the situation and then decide. And sometimes you just react that, oh, like, why did you forget? Like, how am I going to make this or whatever? And
So
have a fight, whatever.
yeah, so I was completing my thought earlier, which is Gita is read in peacetime for wartime. So right now is relatively peacetime for all of us. So that's why we are trying to understand, learn, internalize some of these principles. Because when wartime comes, and wartime will come into all our lives, right? Like there are stressful situations for all of us that are bound to come. In those moments, if we don't have an alternate way of being, if we haven't retrained our mind to think in terms of Gita principles, then of course our natural instinct will follow. And then we have no choice but to go through that experience. Like I remember a year and a half ago or so, I shared a experience in our Saturday Gita class, and it stayed with me that I'm relatively a calm person. But I was really angry that night for some reason or the other. And I had all these voices in my head. I could feel like when anger takes over, I don't know if you've experienced it, but it goes into your body.
Yeah.
Heart rate goes up. Your hand, for me, my hands become hot. I could feel like my blood pumping through my body. And I'm like, okay, I'm really angry. But I'm like, no, I want to control the anger. And my
Mm.
intellect is telling me, do this, acha, let's do nam jap, acha, let's do karparnya dosh, acha, let's do this, let's do that. And I'm like, no, I was up till like 4 a.m. in the morning. It was a Friday night. So I was up till like 4 a.m. On Saturday morning. And uh, and eventually I did something. Yeah, there's a very long story to it, but I think I did one specific shloka which immediately calmed me and put me to sleep. Then 4 hours later, I woke up, and Saturday we have our Gita class. So I went to that Saturday Gita class and I shared my experience, and I was telling my facilitator, I was like, Kumar, I don't get it. Like I intellectually understood it. I
Yeah.
I did not want to be angry. I intellectually tried to control my anger, but my anger was in my body. I couldn't get rid of it. I don't think this works, right? And I remember when I was sharing this as passionately, the entire room kind of related to it. And Kumar basically said, this is how powerful the Maya is. That if you do not put enough effort on the back end to let go of expectations at the very start, the web is so strong that once you're in the web, you can't let go. You can only let go at peacetime on
at
a
the very
daily
beginning, we
basis.
have to cut it at the beginning.
At the very beginning, you
Yeah.
have to, at peacetime, let go of expectations. Be very, when things are going good, this is when we should be working towards our Gita.
Which basically means that small things that will happen in our lives will develop that, like it's like, when we start lifting weights, we start lifting weights with small things. So not getting upset at him because he did not get the ingredients right is a starting point, so that when he does a big blunder, which he will at some point of time, then I don't get that angry with him, right? It's just an example, but basically, yeah, we have to start with small things, because then a bigger issue happens and we are able to find an alternative response to that situation. It always starts with small things. So don't wait for that one big thing to happen, because at that time, it will not change. Nothing will change. You'll go back to your instinctive action because we haven't trained ourselves. When you squeeze an orange, only orange juice will come out of it.
Yeah, precisely. I think, I experienced the same thing which Abhinav mentioned on Thursday night. So I was discussing this with Kavita as well. So I guess, because I am aware now what is the right thing, and what is bliss and what is happiness when you don't have expectation and you just accept the situation. And I guess the time duration now was like 1 day for me. Maybe if I was not doing all this, would have been, for a week or month or maybe forever, the jealousy, anger, expectation. So I switched off after a day, like for a day and a half I was upset and all. So I guess that duration might change in terms of become shorter, and then it will kind of disappear with practice or awareness, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fully. I mean, as you go through this n number of times, your awareness will kick in, and then your intellect will kick in. Hey, there has to be a better way to resolve this, because I don't want to experience this like this anymore. And when you start asking questions, when you come to that confused state of mind, that's when the Gita was started, right? Arjun was
Mhm.
confused before uh, Krishna started his discourse. So
Yeah.
that's a great place to be. You're aware something's not right. I don't know the answer. Chalo, let me go look for it.
Mhm.
And there are two parts to this, right? The first part is at the start. How do your intellect will tell you that this is not the right thing, and slowly, like you said, the time frame will reduce, right? Where you will start to become aware of getting into this web in the first place. So I don't want to get into this web, and you will start to cut that off at the beginning. But if you've gotten into it, then and your intellect is telling you this is not who I want to be, this is not what I want to do, you will start to ask yourself more clearly, how can I now get out of it? So for me, like, just because you're talking specifically about anger, I can get very angry, and I used to be, there was a time when I could stay angry for like a week and like
Yeah.
not talk and throw a tantrum and stuff, right? So over last few years, I've realized that if I do get upset, and of course all of that time frame of how long I can stay angry has reduced to like very few minutes or whatever, or sometimes an hour or two if I get really upset. But I've realized what helps me get out of it is writing. That works for me. So I write to understand, why am I angry? What am I angry about? And when you start asking yourself whys and whys, and you keep writing, by the time I'm done with 3, 4, 5 pages of writing, that anger is ebbed out of me, because I have gotten to the root of it. And after getting to the root of it, I've also found what is the result, right?
Yeah.
Like, what can I potentially do to get out of this space? So it really, really helps that way, right?
Right.
So you will find ways for yourself. Maybe for some people it is exercising, for some people it is listening to music, for some people it is dancing, for some, you will find what will work for you. Now that you've gotten yourself into this space, how can you quickly get out of it? And
Hmm.
you start to implement those things, so that even if you get into it, you're able to come out of it very quickly, because your intellect is already telling you this is not the space I want to be in. And that will strengthen our sadhana. And this is what is will, this is what is purusharth, which is helping us get over our sanskar of being angry.
Yeah.
And like you said, how will it change? From, like, your intellect is already operating, and that intellect, when you're using it, is providing you that wisdom, that this is not the right behavior, this is not the right response, and I want to change it. That's wisdom. As we keep practicing wisdom, it will become pragya. So from doing, we change to being. From doing an action, like you said, right? Will you become that person? Yes, you will. 100%. It is just the practice that will get us there. There's no other way. But you will become that person. You will become a calm person rather than a person who is being calm in a certain situation. So you don't bring calmness, you are being an epitome of calmness.
Yeah.
So yeah, movement from intellect to wisdom to pragya, vivek to pragya.
But yes, I think what Tuina said earlier, I just want to stress it, is when you're in a highly emotional state, asking the right questions will trigger the intellect to try and take over, right? But it's after the incident, it is very important to try and understand what expectation triggered you and why was that so important, where did it come from, because that's the root cause of your mind having attachment to that object or that experience. I
Expectation.
don't bring ingredients at home. Yeah, I made a mistake and I'll quickly own up. But Tuhina will not be angry because I didn't bring the ingredients. Her real anger would be, my work has increased
Mm.
because now I
Or
have to change the menu or I have to figure something out or I'll have to go buy it, right? So the attachment is there somewhere else here.
or the
Mm.
attachment is that I wanted to make a menu for somebody that I want to treat this to, and now I'm not able to do that, right? So whatever. So we get to that thing, but more importantly, at a practical level, another thing that will help is when you're, how do you increase your willpower is by visualizing. After something has happened, then visualize, okay, if this happens again, then what will I do differently? What are the other options that I could have had to behave in a certain situation? And then play it in your mind like, okay, these are 7 different options. This is who I want me to be. This is who I would love for me to be if this situation happens again. Being very detailed about it and visualize it again and again and again. That is how we rewire our brain to behave differently. So that
And
when next time that situation happens, at least your brain will trigger that there is an alternative response, and this is where it is.
that's what chapter 2 is right now doing, right? It's setting that goalpost for us to know what we need to visualize to be. Who do we need to be? We
So,
need
what I understand is after you're angry, make an introspection and how you could have avoided, and then keep that in your mind. And if you're in a similar situation, you have a recap of the same incident in your mind, which will help you prevent. Is that how I understand?
So not recap. Where once you've gotten angry, the first
Mm.
thing is to try and develop how to get out of it quickly. Right? How to get out of it quickly. What is it that gives you energy that will help you detach yourself from that state? Because anger, like everything else, has
Mm.
a life of its own and it wants to perpetuate. It will
Mm.
perpetuate in yourself by reminding you of everything else that makes you angrier, and it will express itself in your environment to try and live in others after this. So the anger is living in Tuhina will now express itself very negatively so that it evokes anger in Abhinav too.
And
Okay.
the strange thing is like it's a vicious circle. So suppose if I get angry at my husband and I go to office because I'm in that zone of emotional anger, I would spoil my relationship with colleague as well. Or if the boss says something, I would react in that manner. So I mean, for me, what worked was because we had the last class of expectation and attachment, and that clarity, that this was my expectation and this was my attachment to those expectations. So I didn't got out. So it took almost a day and a half. But then, like Saturday, I was all good, happy. So but before, I would keep on carrying that because, like I was attached to the expectation that, how can this happen or how can somebody say this? And even for months, I would say that, oh, this person is not good and they said this and they did this. So I guess that
all that is the
awareness,
slippery slope, right? Now
yeah,
that we're studying the Gita together, you realize all that is the slippery slope.
right. And
Don't
it's
get
quite strong. Like it really takes you, like if you don't check it and don't control it, it like would go around you everywhere, wherever you go. So
and like we've I think already read in the Gita is that if you build that grudge, that situation that made you angry is bound to come back in your life.
yeah,
It will
right,
come
right.
back in a more severe way,
Mm.
and then you'll have to deal with it all over again, right?
True,
Remember
I
we had
agree.
talked about those four arms of Krishna, right? He holds four things.
Ah, yeah, the right.
Rama.
I would like to share, Visalakshi speaking. Yeah, so I would like to share. So be in the present is the very important thing. This is my suggestion. Like always, the 5 minutes before you get anger, just come out. That is past. The 5 minutes after, when you realize you are in the present, then your mindset completely relax. Don't think about it. So that is over. What you happened in the future or in the present, more in the present situation, the mind get relaxed actually. So I feel that way. When I get anger, whatever expectations, that is the past. Now you have to come into the present, then you have to think in the present situation, then your intellect more, you can feel more in the active mode actually. Yeah, I can feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a good summary. Right? Presence, being present is definitely something that helps you calm down very, very quickly. All right. Should we continue reading? Ramya, right?
Yeah. To such a sage, contemplation of reality is like the brightness of the day. But to a person engrossed in worldly enjoyments, it is like the darkness of the night. The difference in the outlooks of the two is like the difference between heaven and earth.
Yeah. So, I mean, this entire conversation has actually been really fantastic, right? Because the conversation kind of highlights that we're trying to move away from the darkness. We recognize the darkness now, that this is all unreal, it's not worth it, etc. And we're having that conversation on how do we be the sage to find the real within us, the purpose, um, the 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 self, the capital S self. Yeah. Vijay, are you there? Would you like to read?
Yeah,
Okay. So if you can read the connection, please.
that's 68, right?
69 connection, please.
Sorry. After explaining the difference in two outlooks, the Lord now describes the difference between their attainments.
आपूर्यमाणचलप्रतिष्ठम्
Apuryamanam achala
समुद्रमापः प्रवशन्ति यद्यत्
samudramapah pravashanti yadyat
तदत्कामायं प्रवशन्ति सर्वे
tadat kamayam pravashanti sarve
स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी.
sashantim apanoti na kami.
Please read.
That person attains peace, who is unaffected by the flow of all desires, in the same manner as a sea full of water up to the brim remains unaffected by waters flowing into it, but not the one who cherishes the worldly desires.
Please go ahead.
Complete steadiness of the person with firm perception. This is important shloka explains the thoughts of the worldly pleasures do not cause any agitation in the mind of a person established in firm perception. Such thoughts vanish into the depth of the mind in the same way as waters of rivers flowing continuously into the sea vanishes into it without causing any change in its level. Contrary to this, a man who expects happiness from the worldly enjoyments remains agitated, thinking constantly about them. Failure to secure these enjoyments drowns him in a sea of gloom. But even on securing them, their transient and momentary nature ultimately cause him more distress than pleasure. On the other hand, a person with a firm perception maintains a steady intellect undisturbed by worldly desires. Such a person performs all duties correctly, but pinning no hopes onto the outcome. The mind is ever stable, whether experiencing pleasures of the world or not.
Yeah. So the this is this is basically highlighting the importance of not getting swayed, right, by the pleasures and pains of the world, and we've talked about this a lot. But the one place I think all of us have successfully implemented it many a times as parents is with children. A child may throw a tantrum for a very long time over something they want. And as a parent, we all have played the role as realizing, no, knife is not something to play with. So that's, I'm not going to give that to you, no matter how much you want it, right? And in that moment as a parent, you're also so sure of your knowledge that you don't get angry. You will try every other trick to cajole, to distract, to engage the child, right?
Or in the end, just leave them to cry it out, to let the emotion run its course and let it be, right?
But the larger thing is you're so sure in your knowledge and your belief and your experience that what you believe is true. And the same thing is true for a person who is a sage. He has such strong belief and conviction that this world is all unreal. The only real is Bhagwanji. The only purpose is to get to him. That anything that happens in this world, he's completely unmoved because his belief and his faith is at a much higher level. So then he can experience everything without reacting to it. Because the knowledge the person has and the faith the person has is so strong. Okay, I know this is not what is real. So I don't need to worry about it. My bank balance is zero, no problem. I'm sure I'll be taken care of. I just need to continue doing what I have to do. And that's how we've heard of enough stories of people changing the world, having no money, no fame, born with nothing, but just following their purpose and duty. Right? That's why those people are celebrated generations after generations. Yeah.
I think one thing that has been consistently talked about in our Gita class, and I would love to share that with you because it's something that stayed with me when it was first said, when Kumar shared it with us, was having that attitude of जो प्राप्त है वो पर्याप्त है, right? Whatever we have is enough to take care of us. And if we have desires for worldly things beyond our needs, then and when we are sitting there in front of God and like praying and asking for more things or have those desires in any manner, we are actually acting like beggars. Because what are we saying? I don't have this. We always come from a space of abhav. We come from a space of lack. I don't have it. And so I need it. Acquisitive mindset comes from a space of lack. It comes from a space of being beggarly. But we are not meant to be beggars in this world. We are meant to be kings and queens. And a king or a queen does not have a bhav. He does not have a lack. He has plenty. He has plenty of everything. He has plenty of food. He has plenty of material resources. He has plenty of time. He has plenty of love. He has plenty of understanding. And when he has plenty, he is a giver and not a taker. So we have to move from being a go getter to a go giver. And as we give and give more of whatever we have time, we have love, we have whatever we give more of it in whatever capacity we can, the more comes back to us as we strengthen the system around us. And that is the attitude we must have, an attitude of a king or a queen. We are kings and queens and not beggars in this world. So stop asking people for what they can give to us, but ask as a king or queen, what can you give to others? To your parents, to your siblings, to your family, to your colleagues, to your friends. Yeah?
Guys, I have a question here.
Your voice is booming.
Yeah.
Just a second. Hi. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. So, since we are talking about duties and desires,
we are in our grahasthashram right now, right? Most of us. And as part of that station, as part of that phase of our lives, we are expected to do certain duties in this phase of our lives, right? So we have certain duties as as husbands and as fathers. Now, where is that thin line between the duty and us probably going beyond that thin line and then being attached to our families. If I can, okay, maybe another way to put this would be, um, how does one differentiate between where my duty towards my family finishes and where I'm now stepping into the realm of attachment towards members of my family,
Sure,
right?
very good question. So there are two parts here, but I'll address the second part which you asked directly, and I'll share it with you as through an example because the realm of the question is very wide for me to answer it in an abstract manner, right? Um, Taking this as an example, um, we have a neighbor, and the neighbor has a child who is almost the same age as Vedant. Incidentally, his name is also Vedant. So we have two Vedants on the same floor. Now, as a mother, how am I viewing my child? He's my responsibility, right? I have duty towards my child. I have to fulfill all those duties towards my child, right? Now, where the point where Gita, it says, first of all, charity starts at home. So first thing I have to do is to make sure that I fulfill my duty towards my child. But when I look at our neighbor's child, am I viewing him in the same manner? And am I taking care of him in the same manner as I would for my child is very important. Or am I making a distinction there? The moment you say, okay, this is my child and this is somebody else's child, and I will, if something like if they are fighting with each other, my child cannot do something wrong, and I start protecting him more than somebody else, as an example. Or when you're feeding the children, are you feeding them with the same love, with the same bhav as you would feed your own child? This is just an example. And it comes down to those small, small things. Our parents, right? Our parents are not in Singapore. Now, are we going to continue to worry, oh, what happens to my parents? It's COVID situation is happening. Where are they? How are they going to get taken care of? Something goes wrong. What am I going to do? I cannot travel. All those things. We can continue to either worry about it or and just restrict my thought to my parents alone versus looking at everybody around us in our community. And there are so many parents around us. Can we treat them with the same love, with the same bhav, and give them that feeling that they are our parents and take care of them? Is another way of looking at it. I'm not going to restrict my bhav towards only my biological parents, but treat other parents in the same manner. So
No,
our
but then
definition of family increases.
I understand that, but I would like to think that that is the next step, right? Aren't you supposed to be first taking care of your own parents as part of your duties, having been born in this family? And sure, your that's a very noble thought, and you would want to do that. But if you're unable to do your duty towards your own parents in this particular case, isn't that don't you feel that you're missing out on your first and essential duty of looking after your own parents, and that doesn't taking care of the community at large come in after you've taken care of your own family first?
So this is where you rephrase things, where you realize who you're taking care of. You're taking care of a human being that is powered by the divine. By taking care of a human being powered by the divine, it actually doesn't matter which human being you're taking care of. The purpose is I'm taking care of a human being because that is part of my duty, whether it's my parent or somebody else's parent. The bhav that I do it will be X, Y, Z, and you will watch. I don't want to set this as an expectation, but you will see how miraculously Bhagwanji will take care of your parents on certain other parts.
Now just to address the question directly, right? It doesn't mean that you will not do your duty. I don't take care of my parents, or I don't take care of my responsibility towards my child. No, I will do everything I need to take care of them. Absolutely, it's very essential. But then if the circumstances are preventing me right now to do something, then at that stage either I can worry myself to death or I can do what it takes. There is a circumstance that has been created by Bhagwanji that is preventing me from doing certain things, but has opened up new doors for me to do something else. I'm not saying that please don't take care of your parents, or like, take care of other people. Don't take care of your spouse. Take care of somebody else's spouse. No, no, no. That's not what we are saying, right? You will take care of your family first, right? Charity starts at home, but don't stop it there. Don't stop it there. And if at any moment your circumstantially you get constrained from doing certain things for your family, you can still let that bhav flow towards other people as well, towards your community in general. It doesn't mean leave your family aside and do it for other families. No, that's not what we are saying. Your family comes first, but beyond that, other families also coming. So that's where you start moving away from attachment to your family, right? Not duty, attachment. Duty towards your family, but how do you ensure that there is no attachment? Is by making sure that you extend the same love, the same bhav, the same duty beyond your immediate biological family too. And if that bhav is not coming, then ask yourself, where is the attachment? And that's what you need to weed out.
Can I qualify my question a little bit? What I probably wanted to know was, sometimes you really have to fight for your family. You really have to get out of your comfort zone to do what you know is the right thing for your family, right? Sometimes you have to fight for your brothers and sisters. Sometimes you have to go out of your way and get things done for maybe your wife or for your children, right? What I'm trying to understand is where does it stop being a duty and get into the realm of more? Because we've talked a lot about how all of us can get into this whole vicious circle of being too attached with our body selves, right? And I, I kind of feel that in a lot of things that I'm facing right now in my life, I'm unable to differentiate between where my duty towards the family ends and where I do things out of simply more for my family members. Oh, I must do this because, well, that's family. That's
Uh,
in brackets.
it's quite an interesting question. Can I share my story? So, what you were saying, I guess, like everybody goes through it. And as a woman, like especially Indian women, I guess you have a lot of expectation to serve for the family or do your duties. So for my case, when I got married, of course, you never cook, you never do anything at your home. So what you were, the way you are raised is like, you should study, work, cooking and all was like never taught. But after marriage, the women the expectation is that you should learn how to cook, you should take care of the family. At the same time, you have a personal goals that you want to do, like work or follow whatever is your hobby or interest, take care of the family. So one of my like the friend generally, so I uh, had that clarity that there is a responsibility of my kids, and for that I hire helpers to take care of the times when I'm not there at home. At the same time, I make sure the times when I'm home, I teach my kids what to do, how to do, make sure that they are studying and doing the homework, eating on time by coordinating with helpers. But at the same time, I am not getting attached that I have to make sure to be with her whether she has eaten food or not. So my purpose is to empower her. But at the same time, a lot of moms would say that I cannot leave my kid to eat on their own because I feel they will not eat. So that is attachment. And this, like doing the duty and making sure that the child gets empowered and they eat on their own. And you also do your duty towards yourself as well. So I guess that's the attachment ends. Like what is in my experience, what I can understand that the thin line between getting attached and not, empowering the other person to take their own take the control of their own life and still fulfilling your purpose, your goal. I don't know if I have made myself clear.
Thank you
No,
for that share, Anupama. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, I think that example is fantastic. And I think that's such a real example being a parent. I have seen enough parents go crazy trying to feed their
Yeah,
kids.
at the same time, the cooking. So when I got married, my mother-in-law is like a very good housewife, very good cook. She takes perfect care of the family. But I don't have that attachment. I don't feel that I have to cook for my family to make them eat. So I was very sure that the helpers will cook, and I have other goals in my life to do. But I feel that that my responsibility is to make sure that they're eating, not that they are eating my cooked food.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm not getting attached to their expectation also. So I never took their words seriously when they said that, oh, you're not cooking. Why have you hired a helper? I said like, yeah, I don't want to. I didn't react. I didn't get angry. I said like, this is my goal, and they accepted that. Yeah, that this is the way she is. So there were like initial few arguments and something, but then over the period, people around you accept if what you're doing is right. Like you are taking care of the family, you're taking care of everything, and then you are doing other things as well.
Yeah.
So
So let me just correct what you just shared with Rishabh's question. So Rishabh, when you're with your family, right, there is a lot of work, and there are a lot of things you have to do because that is the role you have to play. You have to play the role of being a dad or a husband or a son, whatever it is. If you're playing that role, compromising your other duty, or you're doing it with a negative bhav, with a negative sense of state of mind, then you already know that you've moved away from your purpose and bhav. If you're doing it and you don't get praised at the end of it or acknowledged by for doing it, and you get upset by it, then you also know the purpose of why you're doing it is wrong, right?
Correct.
So you have to always be conscious of the purpose and the bhav behind every action. You cannot you cannot do one duty over and over again, compromising your other duty. So I can't just keep working and not take care of my family, right? That imbalance doesn't work. But
Like, yeah, we have different roles and responsibilities, right?
so, and the second piece is, do not get the other warning bell for you is getting attached to the results. So, like Anupama was saying, that if she empowers somebody to feed the children seem well fed. But Anupama was like, no, 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 teen chapat. Why did she not eat 3 chapatis? Her diet is 3 chapatis. Why do you only give 2.5? No, no, it has to be 3. Now, all of a sudden, all your energy has gone, moved away from purpose and bhav to action, and you've got attached to the result. At any given point in time, if you feel you're not in the right purpose or bhav, feel free to say no. Say, I'll come back to you. Right now, I don't have the time and space to think about this. I will come back and do my duty later. That, excuse yourself from it, because as we discussed earlier in the call, the slippery slope and the web is so strong, then it will lead to a massive internal turmoil of anger or whatever other emotions that exist. Right? So always any action that you're doing, connect it back to purpose and what bhav with which you're doing, what intention with which are you carrying that task. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. That's interestingly, that's exactly what I was thinking myself too. When in doubt, go back to what is the underlying reason why I intend to do something, and then um, and then I think it just the situation kind of resolves itself. Or even if I find myself to be at cross purposes with another duty, then probably try and find out middle ground between the two, right? Bhav, and then middle ground to balance out various duties in the current station. Thank you.
Okay, good. I think
Thank
we really wanted to finish chapter 2 today, but Bhagwanji obviously had different ideas. So we still have a couple of shlokas left.
Okay, I
Uh,
love the interaction, because
yes.
this class is not about going through shlokas. It is about learning and applying to our real lives, right? So it is very, very good to have sharing from real lives, and to know how we are either implementing or are failing to implement, because there's so much learning in that as well, right? And it's very, very important to continue this sharing. This will help every single person who shares, is echoing everyone other people's thoughts as well, because we are all Arjunas going through the same journey. So we all have same set of questions when we are at a certain stage. So thank you so much to everyone who shared.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to highlight is right in the beginning of the month, we got this message from Maya ji, who is the person who is in Gorakhpur, who didn't who almost started this home radiation program that we're now part of. And that message, she had basically a vision that the next month of April and May are going to be really difficult.
April. So she said this
April.
in March, right? So
She said this in March. She said April is going to be really difficult for a lot of people. So let's start the Hanuman Chalisa. And it's not like group chanting or whatever, but for an individual level, it's our way of giving back energy to the world, giving back strength to the world. And we're halfway through the month, and we can, all of us, I'm sure, are reading about how India's healthcare system is on the brinks of collapse, right? So we made a conscious effort to make sure that every class starts with the Hanuman Chalisa. Uh, and I would request all of you take that time out on a daily basis, because all of us are so far away from our families, and there are a lot of people out there who need that energy and that help. So let's just take that moment and let's do it. And I pray for all of your families. I hope they're all safe, and I hope we do everything we can to keep them safe.
yeah. And not just
Yeah.
Hanuman Chalisa, but we are towards the end of Nam Jap Anushthan, which we started in November. So it is coming to a conclusion in end of April. So please continue with your Nam Jap as well, which we are doing for world peace to whatever extent that you can.
All right.
So basically, Hanuman Chalisa is for world peace, right? That's
So Nam Jap is for world peace. Hanuman Chalisa is this 1 month. It was a 40-day Anushtan that be done at a personal level. So just read Hanuman Chalisa once a day at your own personal capacity. But if you want to do it more number of times, you do it as many times as you want to. It basically helps to allay some of these negative energies going around in the world in this month. That's all the thought was.
okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Just to close in shlokas. Yeah. Om
Sarvesham Swastirbhavatu Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukh Bhag Bhave Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Right on time. You want to say hi, Pucci?
Hi, Vedant. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, this is another example of attachment and responsibility. So, in spite of having a small kid at home, you all make sure that every Sunday you take out time to take the Gita class. But making sure that he is taken care of.
Yeah. Well, we also, I mean, it's also, so this class is most, like for Tuina and me, our own learning has gone so through the roof in the last 2 months because of the entire preparation, the swadhyay, the discussion, the examples, understanding every line, we feel it's benefiting us individually and our family. And for him, he's actually just excited to join his own Gita class. Because he's like, ये होता क्या है? Mom, dad Saturday भी करते हैं, Sunday भी करते हैं. What is this thing? Why can't, like, when do I start? You're like, let's finish ABCD first.
He is Arjuna for us.
All right. Have a great weekend, guys. Have
Thank
a
you so
safe
much.
week.
Yeah, have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Narayan, Narayan.
Narayan, everyone. Thanks.
Bye. Naren.
Bye-bye.
Mami, Rishabh, Mama. Hey, no, stay back. Stay back.